Hello and welcome one and all back to another episode of Early in Cyber, and today is episode 6, believe it or not. But unfortunately this is the last episode of 2024, but don't worry, it'll be a great one to end the year. And I'll just dive straight in and introduce today's guest without further ado. Welcome to Beth Jenkins. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited.
Well, we're excited to have you here. It's something that I've been looking forward to, especially with your expertise. It's a different area which people don't really get insight into. So, looking forward to where the conversation takes us today.
Yeah, me too.
So, for those who aren't familiar with who you are or what you do you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, of course. So I'm Beth Jenkins. So at the moment, I am a lecturer in the University of South Wales in the field of digital forensics. Before that, I've worked for Gwent Police as a digital forensic examiner and a forensic quality specialist. But my interests are into digital forensics and specifically into the accreditation side of things.
Very exciting stuff. So, digital forensics, how did you come about going into this area of cybersecurity? Particularly people are attracted to the penetration testing, the shiny side of things. So what made you want to go down this route?
I think for me it was almost like the prophecy had kind of written itself from when I was really young. I was always really into things like IT. I remember joining my first ICT club at the ripe old age of 4. And I was just always really interested in things like that. And then as I grew up and I grew a little bit older, I was really interested in law as well. So I knew I wanted to do something in IT and in tech when I got to university, but I wasn't quite sure what. And I was looking for sort of different disciplines, different niches, things like this. And I came across digital forensics, which combined the law side of things a little bit with tech as well. So it seemed sort of perfect for me. And I've never really looked back. So that was how I got into it. And that was, one of the best decisions I think I've ever made.
Definitely. And I think you're one of the first guests we've had who've started their career, so to speak, at the age of 4. Joining IT club then.
Yeah, I was getting a head start. What can I say?
Very keen, very keen. But during school then, did you do sort of top A-level subjects around this sort of space then? Or
Yes and no. So I did ICT, obviously, because that's what I needed to go forward and that's what I enjoyed as well. Other than that, I did for A-level, I did ICT, English literature, religious studies, and I'm missing one. Oh, history. It was things that I just enjoyed at the time. And I think looking back on it, I think those subjects, they allowed me to develop different skills around sort of cybersecurity that I didn't really know that I needed at the time. So things like in digital forensics, for example, you're writing reports, you're obviously giving evidence in court and things like this. And a lot of the things that we did at A-level in those different subjects were about writing reports, giving presentations, things like that, getting you a little bit more comfortable with being up in front of people and sort of talking. So although they weren't necessarily very technical subjects, because I only had the option of doing ICT when I was doing A-level, I couldn't do things like computer science and stuff like that as well. I really think that they helped improve me and sort of round me off, I guess, as an individual. One thing that I get asked quite a lot is whether I did maths, and I can say I did not. I absolutely hate it. I hate maths. I still do. I'm not great at it. I remember at GCSE, I got an A at GCSE for maths. And when you're standing in the exam hall and like you get your results back and you open them and like your parents are there and whatever, and I'd already told my parents, like, bar really low for maths, it's fine, we're just gonna, if I pass, it'll be a miracle. And we got there and we opened my results. And it just so happened that maths was the very top line. And it said, like I'd never seen anything like this before. It was GCSE. I'd never really seen a result sheet. It said, like, mathematics, A. And I was looking down it and I was like, no, that's not right. That's not me. And I looked at my mother and I was like, look. And she looked at her and she went, oh, you've picked up the wrong results. And I was like, I picked up the wrong results. And we had to get one of the teachers over to come and check because none of us believed it. So I get asked all the time at like open days and things like this, you know, I'm not that great at maths. Do I need it? And what I would say is, you know, I openly will tell everybody I absolutely hate maths. And I've done okay. I've managed without it. You know, there's definitely an element of it in digital forensics, but it's more of a kind of applied mathematics, things like cryptography and that kind of thing. So yeah, that's one question I get asked quite a lot. But yeah, maths, not my strong suit.
Not to worry, I hated maths, and but I did it at A level. Believe it or not,
Brave.
my friends will say that I was an interesting student in maths. Very interesting, to say the least. Those stories we'll save for another episode. But yeah, it's awful what used to happen. But maths is not needed, but concepts like you said, cryptography, things like this, it does come into play. So it's advantageous sometimes, but not a necessity.
Yeah, 100%. I am. Yeah, it's things that you can pick up as you kind of go along. But yeah, maths not my thing.
Nor mine. And don't do it at uni. I've seen the maths work given to my fellow mates who have chosen to do it at uni. Yeah, just a bunch of numbers and letters put together. But yeah. But another valid point you just touched upon there is, despite your A-level subjects not traditionally revolving around what we would consider, you know, security or computer science, you still manage to take those skills that you've learned. So I think that's really key to share with our listeners, that, you know, perhaps you might have a change of heart later on whilst choosing your uni degree. You still can go down this route.
Yeah, definitely. I think for my A levels, so there were a couple of things that I wanted to do at A level, so there were only two subjects that I absolutely wanted to take at A level, and I knew I wanted to take. One was ICT, the other one was Welsh. And it just so happened that when I got there, ICT and Welsh were in the same column, so I couldn't pick them both. And I remember sitting at home and being like, oh God, what am I going to do? And I thought, well, you know, I can't give up ICT. I just love it too much. So I remember speaking to a couple of different teachers and being like, I didn't really have any other plans for this. And they said, okay, well, just pick things that you enjoy, and, you know, you're more likely to do better at them because you enjoy it. And they were right, to be fair. So that's what I did. And yeah, it was the skills around it and the skill sets that I developed through it that at the time I didn't even know were going to be helpful to me. But it wasn't until, obviously, you know, I moved into my career that I can look back and think, oh yeah, I suppose that did help me. So yeah, it's definitely, that would be one of my biggest pieces of advice for people picking A levels, is that you just pick things that you enjoy and that you're gonna enjoy going through, because it's a long old process otherwise.
And I completely echo that same sentiment. I picked geography at A level. Absolutely love it.
Yeah.
I'm one of those weirdos that'll go down to the beach and tell you how the beach's formed and the rocks and stuff, and then
Oh, I love that. Yeah, exactly. Things that you enjoy. That's the way to go.
Definitely. So after A levels, you stuck to the traditional path of going to university. So can you tell us a bit more about what you did there, and how did you come to choose the degree that you did?
Yeah, so I went to the University of South Wales, which is obviously where I'm lecturing now, which is nice. I've gone full circle. But yeah, I studied there doing the computer forensics course as it was then. And it was, like I said, it was amazing. I enjoyed it so much. We studied, you know, a lot of things about cybersecurity and about digital forensics as well. And I was quite fortunate that I was able to take a sandwich placement as well in the middle of my degree. So I did 2 years in university, then 1 year out, and then 1 year back. So in that time out, I worked for Gwent Police. as an intern, as their like cyber intern in their digital forensics lab. And that was so beneficial to my degree and to gaining, you know, that little bit of experience that helps you later on in life and further down the line in your career. But yeah, that's what I did in university was computer forensics in the University of South Wales, and it was a really, really great time. I know it sounds a little bit biased now that I work there, but honestly, it was one of the best times of my life. I think I met so many great people, and it's nice now to have gone, like I said, full circle and to be teaching alongside people who taught me back in the day. So yeah, a bit strange, but it was really, really fun. It was really beneficial, and I still am really proud to have come from there.
Definitely. So I've noticed that you also worked as a junior developer. So you've touched on other sides of, I guess, IT, but also you've done digital marketing. So how was that as an experience, and why did you choose to do those two particular things?
So to be 100% honest with you, those were part-time jobs that I had to put me through university. But they were really fun in their own way. And again, it's things like that I didn't realize were helpful, I suppose, until you kind of look back on it. So programming, I really, really enjoyed programming. It wasn't something necessarily that came particularly naturally to me, I would say. It was something that, you know, I kind of did a lot of work around and a lot of research around. But yeah, I worked as a junior developer for a little while I was in my sort of first and second year of university, just part-time, trying to put myself through uni. And it was so much fun. And the company that I worked for were great in as much as they were really happy for me to spend my time kind of researching different things and learning as well as working for them. And I didn't think it was going to have that much of a bearing, to be 100% honest with you, until I went back for my second year of university and we started programming, and I realized that I knew a lot more than other people, only because I'd done it in work. But yeah, it was really, really fun. Again, quite technical, probably more technical than things that I was used to, but it was nice to kind of get your teeth into it a little bit and use those skills. And then digital marketing, that was great. It was for a theatre quite local to me, really, and it was a theatre that I used to go to when I was a kid, like with my grandparents, with my family, that kind of thing. So it was nice being kind of behind the scenes a little bit. But yeah, we did the social media marketing. That's what I used to do. And again, it was fun. It was nice being behind the scenes, having the ability to develop my social media skills, really, because I'll be honest, they weren't that great. And like my marketing skills weren't that great because it wasn't something that I'd ever really come across before. But yeah, it helped to sort of broaden my horizons a little bit. And again, with that kind of talking to people side of things, and like dealing with lots of different vendors, we did a lot of work with things like schools, you know, around, especially this time of year, around like panto season, that kind of thing. So a lot of organizing of that kind of stuff, and just like good communication skills, which again, you become so much more confident in yourself. And when you're in your kind of second, third year of university, it's something that you're sort of lacking a little bit, because, you know, I did work for Gwent, which helped an awful lot. But yeah, just developing your communication, being happy talking to people, organizing big groups, it all helps when you go into your actual career and becoming comfortable talking in front of people, which is definitely a skill that I think doesn't come hugely naturally to a lot of people, and it's only through sort of practice that you get really good at this. So yeah, it was fun. It was good. It was while I was in university, but yeah, it was interesting to see different sides of it, really, and develop different skills.
Definitely. And I think that last point I want to touch on, I'm naturally an introvert. So, you know, practice makes perfect, and just reaching out, doing these different things like you did with the marketing side of things, you know, helps you to hone in on those skills, and it'll help you later down in your career.
Yeah, definitely. I remember I used to be terrified of talking on the phone. I don't know why, but I just used to. I hated it, and it wasn't until I started working at the theatre that they were like, right, you're going to have to, call these different people, call the head teachers, whatever, make sure you're arranging all this stuff. And I was like, I don't want to. And it was kind of like, well, you've got to, so off you go. And you just sort of, the first time I did it, I was terrified. And I don't know why. I used to pray it used to go to voicemail or something, or they just wouldn't pick up. I just got a little bit better at it sort of after time. It's just these different skills that, again, you don't even realize that you're developing until late down the line when you've sort of done it. You think, oh, actually, yeah, this isn't so bad. Yeah, I'm better at it now.
Don't worry, you're not the only child to have gone through that phase. I used to pray that they wouldn't pick up.
Yeah.
And afterwards, I was like, yes, I've done it.
Yeah. It always used to be a good day if I went to voicemail.
But for your sandwich course, you then went on to do a master's. Now, a lot of people debate whether they're going to go down the traditional master's route. Was there reasoning behind that, or was it because of your love of learning, or what was?
It was a bit of both. So I will be 100% honest with you. I did what I think is probably colloquially known as a fear masters. In as much as I finished my undergrad degree, and I was like, I'm not ready to go out into the big wide world. It's scary. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't feel prepared to get a job, and I really genuinely do love learning. And for my undergrad, I did a dissertation, obviously, and the dissertation was based around ISO 17025 and accreditation. And I geared it towards making a framework for policing. And it was really, really well received. And it went to the forensic science regulator of the time, Jill Tully, and, she looked at it for me and said it was great and all this sort of stuff. And it gained quite a lot of traction. And there were a lot of labs in this country and in other countries who kind of wanted it, or at least wanted to look at it, which was really, really great because I spent a long time on it. And it was based on things that I had learned in Gwent when I worked there as an intern. So it was kind of founded in, I don't know, like kind of practice, I suppose, which was nice. So I was also really keen to carry on that work at the time. So it was kind of a culmination of, number one, I'm not sure I'm ready to get a job. Number two, I feel like I've got more to give to this industry in terms of the research side of things. And three, that I loved learning and I basically just wanted to carry on. So I think that was kind of my sort of style, I suppose, was just to carry on learning. And that's what I did. And that's what I did for my master's. So my master's was in cybersecurity. And I did it at the University of South Wales, and I had a really great time. And it was only a year. I got to carry on my work with my sort of second dissertation for my master's. And I did something a little bit different, which tackled at-scene accreditation, which at the time was very kind of new, and I suppose still is quite new to the industry, and hadn't really been touched upon. So I did that and made this framework and all this sort of stuff. And I was quite fortunate that, again, it was quite well received. And I presented at different conferences about that work and my previous work. So things like Magnet's Virtual Summit, the Chartered Society of Forensic Sciences, Europol's Forensic Experts Forum, things like this. And I just had a really, really great time. And then by the time I came to the end of my master's, I was ready to go, that's kind of where it came from.
Ready to leave the nest, so to speak.
Yeah. yeah, basically that's where it was. It was either that or, like, I don't think they would have had me back for another masters. They were getting to the point where
time to go, just push you out.
Yeah, they just couldn't get rid of me.
So after your masters, you went into the police force, and you did two roles there. you're going to know this better than me. I think it was digital forensic examiner, and help me with the second one, please.
Forensic quality specialist.
There we go. So how's the experience there, and what did those roles entail?
So a digital forensic examiner was the role that I went into first. So when I came out of uni, it was just good timing, to be honest. It just so happened that when I finished my master's, there was a job coming up in Gwent. And again, just really, really fortunate timing. So I applied for that. And I was lucky enough to get it. So the digital forensic examiner is the role that would examine cases in police forces, not just in Gwent, obviously, in everywhere. So they're sometimes called a few different things. They might be called digital forensic investigators, examiners. There's different roles. But yeah, I worked on cases basically for Gwent Police digital forensics cases. But basically what happened was, in my interview, I told them that I wanted to go into accreditation. And that's pretty rare, I'll be honest, in digital forensics. It's not a very popular topic. And I just loved it. And I still am really passionate about it. And I told them about it and said, this is really what I want to do. I'm totally happy to do digital forensic examiner role, but I really want to go into this. And they had said that in the future, there would be a role coming up. It just wasn't quite ready. So I did the digital forensic examiner role while I waited basically for that job to come up. And then I sort of sidestepped into that forensic quality specialist role. So yeah, it was really good. I did enjoy doing casework, and I loved working in the lab and having that kind of practical hands-on experience. And I think looking back, if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have been as good as a forensic quality specialist, only because I think working in the actual job and doing the cases and sort of living that life and living that role for that amount of time allowed me to see what the challenges are, like realistically, what are people doing on a day-to-day basis, and how can we improve it, and how can we make this fit in with quality. So when I moved to the accreditation side of things, writing policies and things like this was just a little bit easier, I suppose, because I knew what was going on kind of at the coalface, if that's what you want to call it. So yeah, they were just two separate roles. And yeah, quality was what I really wanted to do. So that involved things like writing policies, dealing with the ISO 17025 accreditation side of things, dealing with UCAS audits as and when they came up, things like that. So yeah, those were my two sort of separate roles.
And for those listeners who aren't familiar with ISO 27 or
1785,
I'm used to saying 27 or
one.
Yeah. In my industry, that's what we're familiar with. But
yeah,
your ISO standard, do you mind sharing with us a bit more about that, please?
Yes. So 1785 is an ISO accreditation. So it's the ISO accreditation that is sort of the set of rules that governs digital forensics. So it's a standard essentially that we have to comply with to make sure that we're giving this consistently high quality and best quality of work in the time that we're doing cases. The idea being, I suppose, in the sort of basic side of things, is that if you picked up a case of, say, mine from 2 weeks ago, and then you picked up a case of a colleague of mine from 2 months ago, we would still be following the same procedures. We'd still be giving that really good, consistent, high quality of work. And it's that sort of quality stamp of assurance, I suppose, that it's consistently good quality work. So that's what it aims to do. And then once a year, UCAS, the United Kingdom Accreditation Service, will come out and just sort of assess you and make sure that you are still compliant with these things, to make sure that you've not just got the accreditation and then sort of dropped it, So yeah, that's what it's for. It's this sort of set of rules that govern the laboratory.
All right, okay. I've learned something new today. I'm sure others have as well. So thank you for that.
It's okay.
And in terms of working in the police force, obviously that is public sector. a lot of individuals will have familiarity with more so the private sector things. They typically, it's always advertised private sector has more funding, etc. So what was your experience at Gwent, overall, if that makes sense?
Yeah, it was fantastic. I've spoken about this a fair bit with, again, in things like open days, because I get these sorts of questions quite a lot, like public versus private, that kind of thing. And there are definitely merits to both. There are drawbacks to both as well. But for me, I champion public sector only because I haven't really worked in private. I mean, working for the university is kind of like having a foot in both, to be honest. But I've worked for Gwent, which is public service, and I loved it. They were just so great all the time. They were really understanding with different things that you were going through, in terms of what we were looking at. The material that we were looking at wasn't always the nicest to things to kind of take in and to absorb. So they were always really understanding from like a well-being point of view. The time off and work-life balance was pretty great as well, and they put a lot of store into that. The university does as well, but specifically for policing at the moment, I would say a lot of people worry about work-life balance, and I can say wholeheartedly from working there that it was great. The work-life balance was really lovely, and they really encouraged you to make sure that you took that time. Again, the university does the same thing, and they're really great with it as well. So I think you get paid more in private, 100%. And private industry definitely does have more funding to offer. So I think it depends what you want from your career. There are some people that would rather maybe have less in terms of work-life balance, but more in terms of salary, which is fine. But for me, I think I put more store in the work-life balance than the salary. So I was happy to accept that there would be a slightly lower salary than in private industry, but a better work-life balance. For me personally, that was just what worked. So yeah, I would always champion public sector, but again, that's just my experience. That's not to say there's anything wrong with private. It's just that's just what I'm kind of used to. But I would say, yeah, it was a really, really great experience, and I would wholeheartedly recommend it.
And that's quite a refreshing perspective to have, because again, a lot of people champion private sector, but I guess, like you say, there's pros and cons of both sides of the fence.
Yeah, 100% there are, and depending on who you talk to, depends on which side you get. So again, I can't give a huge amount of insight into private. There's every chance that maybe if I took the plunge and transferred, that maybe I'd change my mind completely. But until such a time, I'm definitely for public sector personally. But yeah, there's pros and cons to each.
And as somebody who works in private sector, I can completely echo that, because I've seen people in certain companies have a great work-life balance, others not so much. So it depends what sort of individual you are as well. I know others who just get their head down and they don't really need that work-life balance because they're so passionate about their work. Whereas others, they have other commitments, etc., whether it's family, hobbies, so it's about finding what works for you. So
yeah, exactly. Every individual is going to be different, and it's whatever suits your kind of lifestyle and what sort of you want back from your career. So yeah, everything will be a little bit different. Yeah, everybody's got different experiences of it.
Definitely. And last but not least, we're going to talk about how you've landed back to where I guess your official cybersecurity, journey began, back at the university. So, do you mind telling us how you managed to bring yourself back?
They just, like I said before, they just could not get rid of me. So I think, again, it was a case of like timing and fortunate timing, because I was working at Gwent, and while I worked at Gwent, they were really, really good with letting me do things for the university. So I used to do things like guest lectures, that kind of thing. And I used to help out with some of their assessments as and when I could. So I always knew that I wanted to lecture. When I was a younger, we're talking sort of like 14 to 18 kind of age, I used to volunteer in a local primary school. And I started off doing sort of rudimentary things like, putting up displays, which were a work of art, by the way. I was like the mastermind of wall displays. So I want that noted for future. But
duly noted, added to the CV.
Thanks. There's not very often instances where that comes up, so I like to put it out there. So I used to start off doing things like that, and then eventually I used to move on to, when I was a little bit older, like helping to teach classes and things like this. So I used to do a lot of helping out with year 3, so they were like 7 or 8 year olds, and I just loved it, and I loved teaching. And when I got the opportunity to do guest lectures, again, that was kind of teaching. And the only reason that I didn't go into teaching as a career is because I loved ICT so much, and I wanted to retain that. And I didn't want to teach, lots of different topics like, English, maths, history, science, this sort of thing. I wanted to specify that I wanted to teach digital forensics, to be honest with you. So I enjoyed the tech side of things just too much to kind of let it go. So once I had done my degrees and I went into Gwent and I got this opportunity to do guest lecturing, I was like, oh, that's amazing, because it means that I can teach and it'll be digital forensics, and like I can kind of keep both, and this is amazing. I was like a kid at Christmas. So I started doing that, and I just loved it. So yeah, this sort of fortunate timing. A job came up as a lecturer for digital forensics and cybersecurity. And to be 100% honest with you, I went into it, I got the interview, and I went into it so convinced that I wasn't going to get it, because I was like, I don't think I have enough experience, really. Like, I'd never really taught before. I know I did the sort of volunteering, but it's not the same thing. And I know I'd done guest lecturing, but again, it's not really the same thing. So I was like, oh, I'm not going to get it, but it'll be really good experience for me when I do the interview, and they can give me feedback, and then maybe I can sort of tailor my career so that it'll help me for future. And I was so convinced I wasn't going to get it that when I got the email, I was like, it's fine. And I just checked my phone. I was like, oh, well. And I had to read it twice because it said, like, congratulations. I was like, no, that must be me. I can't read. I've forgotten how to read. I was over the moon, honestly. I think I remember at one point in my interview for this job, they asked me a question about why do you want to teach at USW? Like, why USW? And I actually remember my answer because I just sort of stopped, and I was like, oh, do you know what? I just love this university. And I sort of went off on like how much I adored the university, and which is true, I do. And I think it's because obviously I was taught there, and I have such great experiences there. So yeah, to be able to be back and actually teaching there is amazing, and to be honest, kind of blows my mind when I think about it a little bit too much. So yeah, it is very much my dream job. And I think if you look back at other podcasts that I've done, because I remember doing a podcast when I was in Gwent as well for Technocamps, and she asked me, what do you want to do in the future, 5 years sort of thing. And I was like, oh, well, I'd really like to go into lecturing, but I'm not sure if that's a 5-year or maybe more sort of 10-year plan, because I need a little bit more experience. But that would be my dream job. And I actually came across the lady who interviewed me for the podcast the other day. She was like, I remember you telling me this was your dream job. So yeah, yeah, it was. So yeah, it was just incredible. Honestly, it was one of the best moments to say that I'd got the job. But yeah, that's how I ended up coming back. Maybe it was my enthusiasm, or maybe it was just I didn't shut up in the interview. Maybe it was one of them.
So they're like, we're going to have to say yes eventually.
Yeah, then it just doesn't stop talking. My God.
But I'm glad you're where you wanted to be.
Thank
and
you.
Much more sooner than you expected.
Yeah. I think it's it's great. I love teaching, like I said, and I love building a kind of rapport with the students as well, and I love helping them. I love seeing them go through their own journeys as well, especially since, like I said, I had such a great experience at the university, and because I think I put so much store in the university and I have such great memories there. And it's really sort of heartening, I suppose, to be able to see all these other students going through the same experiences as I did and doing the same things. And honestly, it is such a privilege to be able to be such a small part of that journey, so that maybe, you know, one day when they look back at their university journeys, hopefully they'll think it was a good one. And, you know, they might look back and think, oh yeah, you know what, it was I had like the great time. And to be able to be part of that from the teaching side of things is absolutely one of the greatest honors. So yeah.
And it goes to show, just the way you're talking about teaching, it shows your passion, and that's what I really like. If you're going to go into teaching, be passionate about the subject. Don't do it for the sake of it. And no. I'm sure that your students will have very positive feedback and just as much enthusiasm as for the university as when you did when you left. Maybe just a smidge less, but yeah.
yeah, that's true. I don't think they're going to top what I did, but yeah, they can try.
Thank you for that, Beth. Great to hear about your career. And as always, our guests send in some questions. So I'm just going to dive straight into the Q&A section. And as always, in no particular order. So first question, as a successful woman in cybersecurity, what challenges have you faced and how have you overcome them?
Do you know what? Cybersecurity it's such an exciting and sort of dynamic field. And I love it. And like I said before, it was very much kind of, it was the right decision for me to go into it. That being said, it doesn't come without its challenges, especially being a woman, and specifically, I think for me being quite a young woman in the industry as well, probably sort of adds to it. I think one of the main sort of challenges I face, and I have to be honest, my general experience has been overwhelmingly positive. So when I talk about these challenges, it's not saying that it was kind of, you know, every day was a sludge, you know, it was a nightmare. I was in the trenches, you know, it was more of a sort of 95% really, really good, 5% like challenges. I think one of the main challenges for me was feeling almost a little bit isolated, or maybe kind of alienated a little bit. That's not to say that the people in cybersecurity aren't brilliant, because they are. Like I said, I've been to a lot of conferences and I've been fortunate to talk at them all and present at them. And the people that you meet at them are amazing. They are so welcoming. They're so friendly. They are just genuinely lovely people. And they're so invested in what you have to say. However, when you walk into a conference, and this has happened to me near enough every time I've gone to a conference, and you can kind of walk into the room and a good 95% of the people there are male, and you can kind of look around and it can feel a little bit daunting in a way. Not to say that they're not friendly, because they are, but just to be a bit like, oh, I'm kind of in the minority here, this can be a bit scary. And I think almost as an instinct, I guess, you feel like you need to prove that you deserve to be there, which, you know, isn't the case at all, but you almost feel like you have to kind of overcompensate and like prove your expertise, and you start putting on all the letters after your name, and like you're whipping out all the awards from the cabinet, you know, and it can just feel like you have to prove to people like, oh no, I do know what I'm talking about, like I am actually here for a reason. And I think that can be one of the main challenges I've definitely found in the past that I think maybe sort of without realizing it, I think people ask me questions as that perhaps they wouldn't ask males in the industry. And I think that has been, again, it's so rare. It's extremely rare. But yeah, sometimes there can be that element of sort of, okay, I feel like I have to back myself here. And that is part of overcoming it. Again, these are issues that are being kind of dealt with in the industry as we go on, because we've got such great programs now to try and encourage women and girls into STEM, which are so important and do such great work. And it's definitely kind of starting to level out, which is really great. Well, I say level out, but it's going in the right direction. And that's really great. And I will say that, a lot of the conferences that I go to, there are now slightly more women there, which is really nice to see. But yeah, I would say that was probably the main challenge for me, is just having to kind of to prove yourself. And I think to overcome it goes back to what I said about kind of backing yourself. You have to almost sort of support yourself and be your own biggest fan, which it can be a bit strange at times, because you have to almost sort of hype yourself up and be like, you know what, no, you deserve to be here, you've earned your spot, you've got this and this and this, like you find, and everybody there, generally speaking, are really nice as well. So if you go up and talk to somebody, they're going to be really nice. And like after talks that I've given, I've always had like a little line of questions with people who just want to talk to me and ask for my experience and my expertise, things like this, and it's always really nice. But yeah, there's a certain element of you have to back yourself and remember that you deserve your place here as much as anybody else. And again, things like the women in STEM programs that do amazing work, I think it helps to connect women with other women as well, which can be really nice, to kind of talk to other people who 9 times out of 10 have had the same experiences, and that we don't just have to tolerate it anymore. There's this network and there's so much awareness around the topic. So yeah, I think that's probably the main one for me.
I appreciate you highlighting your personal struggles and your journey through, cyberspace. And like you say, it is daunting. I guess I look at it through a different lens. But I guess for anybody coming into early cyber, male or female, it's going to be daunting, no matter what. And like you say, just backing yourself, having that confidence. You are here because you're here, because you've chosen to be here. You deserve it. So, whether that's you're being hired for a job, you went through the interview stages and they chose you. So, it is going to be intimidating working with those senior experts. But, they've seen something in you that perhaps you can't see in yourself.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, and I will say it took me a while to kind of to back myself and to learn about how to sort of support myself in a weird sort of way. But yeah, because again, I've been really kind of fortunate that I've won different awards in the industry, and every time I get one, I'm like, no, that's crazy. But again, it goes back to what you said, they've obviously seen something that you don't. And I think when other people back you, maybe without you even realizing, and you have to sort of accept that is the case, and that actually, you know what, you are pretty great. So yeah, it's definitely a kind of culture shock, I think. But yeah, back yourself.
100%, and that is something that more and more of us should do on a daily basis. We always look for the negatives. Let's look at the positives.
Yeah, exactly
yes,
that.
I've done that today.
Yeah, exactly that. Exactly.
So thank you for that excellent answer. But moving on to question 2. So how do you see the role of digital forensics evolving in the next few years, especially in relation to new types of cyber threats?
Nice, interesting one. I think the main thing for digital forensics over the next few years is going to be AI and the role of AI and the kind of evolution of it, because I think at the moment we're still at the stage where nobody really knows kind of what it is or what it's capable of. It's just sort of this new entity. It feels a little bit like living in a sci-fi film, to be 100% honest with you. It's crazy what it can actually do. And I think from a digital forensic perspective, sort of having that and examining that and recognizing it, and I think not only, especially from a forensic point of view, obviously the courts are going to need to adjust, and there's going to be there needs to be new laws and things put out to sort of tackle this and deal with it. There are lots of examples of, I think, videos of celebrities and things that are AI generated that are going viral that aren't actually real, and that are portraying them in different lights, obviously, that aren't particularly flattering. And it's sort of like, well, it's not real, but it is real. And yeah, this sort of, from a law perspective, it's crazy. So I think from a forensic perspective as well, it's really, really interesting to see how we're having to change and adapt and evolve. And it's a perfect example of what we talk about in digital forensics a lot, which is that this is not an industry that is sort of stagnant. You don't get your degree and then go into it and it doesn't change. Because this is an industry that grows, and it's almost sort of like a living, breathing entity, because it has to be. There are so many new technologies, and witnessing something like this, like the growth of AI in real time, is it's an interesting time. It's a little bit scary, what it is capable of. But once we've learned more about it and evolved and adapted, and again, the law specifically will have to change and adapt with it, then we'll be able to kind of deal with it as well. So yeah, I think AI is going to be the biggest challenge, and sort of how we're going to need to adapt. And there are a lot of moving parts to that one. It's not just forensics, it'll be sort of everybody really. So yeah, I would say AI and things like VR as well, and that kind of thing.
Definitely. AI's everywhere at the moment.
Yeah.
As I was discussing earlier, the MacBook's got the latest update. I don't know what Apple's put on. I'm going to have to go play with it. I've just updated it recently. So, yeah, it's just AI's been thrown everywhere, on the phone, on your laptops, just everywhere. So it's a learning curve as well for those in the industry.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
So moving on to the third question, who or what has been your greatest inspiration, you would say, throughout your career in cybersecurity?
Probably, so this is a multifaceted answer, I think. So I am lucky that I've got a really great support network around me anyway. So like my friends, my family have always been really great with just being they've just been like my biggest hype people. I think, they turn up for me all the time. They're always so excited about everything that I'm doing. So that's always been really great. And to a certain extent, I suppose that's my inspiration. But if I had to pinpoint it to one person, then I absolutely can. So when I started working at Gwent, as an intern and in my career anyway, there was a quality manager who worked there. So the quality manager was a step above me as forensic quality specialist. And he was amazing. He knew everything about accreditation. What he didn't know wasn't worth knowing, basically. And he recognized that I was really passionate about it. And he recognized it when I was in my internship. So that was quite early on. And basically he used to encourage me to kind of take this on and to develop it further, because he obviously could see that I was quite interested in it and passionate about it and quite good at understanding things like this as well. And he was so supportive, and he always had time to sort of sit with me, and like if I had different questions, he would always be there for me and be like explain the answers. And even if he explained it and I was like, I have no idea, go again, he'd be like, okie dokie, and we'd go again in like a different way. And I honestly think and truly believe that if it wasn't for him and sort of encouraging me and having time for me, that I wouldn't have gone into accreditation the way that I did. And I don't think I'd have had the same sort of spark for it and passion for it, because he nurtured that within me. So yeah, I think my old quality manager, Paul, was my biggest inspiration.
Well, a big shout out to Paul, if you're listening.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for being Beth's inspiration and, getting her where she is today. But one thing I'm going to add is it's all about having the right people around you. I've always said this throughout my life: have the right company, whether it's your friends, family, work colleagues. Honestly, there's been times where I've been in a slump. A WhatsApp call the right person, video call. They say the right thing at the right time, and they're like, you know what, I've got this now.
Yeah, 100%. It's such a delicate balance, I think, between backing yourself and then relying on other people as well, and sort of having that to and forth. So yeah, 100%.
Definitely. So going on to our fourth question, what advice would you give to young professionals just starting their career in the cybersecurity field?
I think I possibly have covered this already, and I don't want to sort of repeat my own advice, but I think obviously I've said about backing yourself and being your own kind of biggest fan. And I think that's a big part of it. But specifically for people who are early in cyber and into this industry, I would say don't be afraid about being curious. Being curious is great. And I think that's what has sort of pushed me down different routes. Like we talked about the programming and the digital marketing side of things. Like those are things that I wasn't necessarily going into a career in. Like I didn't want to be a programmer full time, but I was curious about it. And I ended up meeting great people, developing lots of skills, which have helped me sort of later in life as well. So yeah, be curious, want to find things out, and know that it's okay to do that. You are still learning, and the more that you can learn about this industry, the more people you can meet, the more things you can find out. It will help you. So yeah, just be curious and try new things, and don't be afraid to do it, especially if maybe you're the only person who's doing that. Don't be afraid. You're doing the right things. Be bold, be curious, and be brave.
I love that. Be bold, be curious, be brave.
Thanks.
Get that put on a t-shirt for the next episode. There we go.
Yeah, put it on my wall.
So this, I think, no, you haven't touched upon this, I don't think, but from your experience, what is career progression like when working within the public sector?
It varies, to be 100% honest with you, from place to place. I know that progression is something that they're working on at the moment, specifically within digital forensics, because it was kind of identified that progression was not difficult, but there weren't really avenues for it. So I know it was a big thing that they were talking about a few years ago. I remember going to a conference about it when I worked in Gwent, and it was sort of like a policing conference, and they were talking about specifically in policing how we can sort of encourage progression. But it depended where you were. Like some places do digital forensic technicians, for example, which would be kind of like entry level. Then you progress to examiners or investigators, and then senior examiners / investigators, depending on what the roles are. You can also go into things like management and quality as well. So the progression is there. It's just that it might not be a sort of straight ladder, so to speak. It might be more of a tree that kind of branches off to different places. So I think, yeah, it very much depends where you are, to be 100% honest with you. And I know that's not much help as an answer to a question, but it is out there, and it's something that as an industry that we are working on, and specifically in public sector as well. But yeah, it might be that it's a little bit kind of, instead of being a straight line up, it's a bit more up and down. But yeah, it's there.
It's there if you can find it.
Yeah, I know. It's not the best answer I've ever given to a question, to be 100% honest with you. But I'm self-aware about it. So it's a strange one, and because it varies so much from organisation to organisation, it's tricky to answer. But yeah, definitely in terms of my experience personally, you could go from kind of technician as entry level to examiners or investigators, and then into senior roles as well, and then eventually up into management if you wanted to as well. So that was an example of, I suppose, a more linear sort of progression. But again, it depends what you want. There are so many more doors open to you once you've got experience in different things. You can start to specialize if you want to, or you can, move to different departments, this sort of thing. So yeah.
Thank you for that. Not an easy question to answer by far, so thank you for doing your best there.
I tried.
So last but not least, for early in career individuals, what sort of jobs are available in the digital forensic space?
So like I just mentioned about digital forensic technicians and examiners. So depending on which organisation you're looking at, some people do technician roles and then into examiners, whereas some will do just examiners sort of straight in. But yeah, there are lots of different roles available. I know there are some organisations that will take entry level as you kind of do a bit of everything and then you progress on to examiners. There are other organisations which sort of split up the process. So like they might split up, like they've got X amount of people doing imaging, X amount of people doing reporting, this sort of thing, and that's how you progress. So you progress through each of the different stages. So you might start out at imaging, for example, and work your way up. I'm not quite sure, but that's just an example. There are also opportunities in private industry as well. I know I talk a lot about public, but there are opportunities in private to do sort of instant response. I think that's a sort of area of digital forensics and cybersecurity that's not talked about enough. And it's such an interesting field, and it's really great. So there are lots of sort of entry level positions in that kind of thing as well. It's a case of kind of looking around for them and seeing what's available. But yeah, in public sector specifically, I would advise looking for things like digital forensic examiner or investigator roles. Sometimes they're called slightly different things, or digital forensic technician roles, because those tend to be more geared towards sort of entry level, and kind of getting your foot in the door. I also can't undersell the power of internships as well. There are lots of places that do internships, and they're not just for university students. Like they can be for graduates or like graduate level positions as well, and they're specifically for people who've just graduated, and they might not be forever, like they might be for a year or 2 years, but they're really great for you to get that experience. And just sort of, like I said, just sort of get your foot in the door a little bit and get a little bit of experience behind you, if you don't have that already, and just see what it's like. And for you more than anything, as well as for them, for you as an individual, to see if this is actually what you want to do, and that you do enjoy it, and check that, yeah, you're enjoying it as much as you thought you were going to. So yeah, keep an eye out for things like graduate positions or internships, just to get a little bit of experience, and then that might help you to get a better role sort of later on.
Thank you for that. And I think that wraps up all the questions. So once again, thank you for sending your questions in, and a huge thank you for Beth for providing very detailed answers.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's been really fun.
So before we wrap up, I always ask for some words of wisdom from our guests. This stems back from school. Certain individuals know what I'm talking about. But so, what words of wisdom do you have to share with our audience today?
I mean, I kind of touched upon it with I don't think I'm going to top my be curious, be brave, to be honest with you. But I will do my best.
Be bold.
Be bold, be curious, be brave. I think my biggest takeaway from developing myself through my career is learning to back myself. And I think that would be my sort of words of wisdom, I suppose, is that it is okay to back yourself. And I think sometimes we're taught that we have to be humble, we have to be kind of a little bit shy, almost have to kind of say like, oh no, I'm not really that great, oh no, it's okay. But it is okay to accept that actually you're doing well and that you are going to do well, and to be your own number one fan. So yeah, I would say to make sure you back yourself, and to just be, like I said, be bold, be curious, be brave, and take risks and explore things, and know that it's okay to do that, and that you will do okay, and that there are lots of people who are in this industry who are willing to support you, myself included. I think being an early in career individual can be quite daunting. It can be a little bit scary at times. So to reach out to people if you need some advice, or you want just a little bit of encouragement or a kind of nudge in the right direction, and to back yourself to do those things, because you will succeed and you will be okay.
I love that. So key takeaway is be bold, be brave, be curious, and keep it humble like apple crumble.
Exactly.
I will say that around the house. My mum looks at me like, you okay there? And they're like, yes.
Exactly that.
So I think that is a wrap for this episode. So I would like to end today's episode by thanking Beth once again for being an excellent guest. We've loved having you on here. So, once again, thank you so much. And to our listeners, I guess this is goodbye for 2024, but don't worry, plenty of more exciting content coming in the new year. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Early in cyber, where knowledge meets inspiration.